Welcome back. Anybody have any great news before we go to today's word? I wouldn't want you sitting there about to burst the whole time, so okay. I'm going to read from the 9th chapter of John, and you'll notice a difference if you've read this before. I'm going to use it as an analog. So I've changed some of the language, especially about the man who was blind. I'm going to refer to him as the man who couldn't see. And hopefully, as a metaphor, this will make it relatable in extra ways for everybody. Yeah. Now, as Jesus passed by, he saw a man who had never been able to see. His friends asked him, saying, "Rabbi, whose fault is it that this man's or his parents, that he has no vision?" Jesus answered, "Neither this man nor his parents is to blame, but that the works of God should be revealed in him. I must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. The night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world." When he had said these things, he spat on the ground and made clay with the saliva, and he anointed the eyes of the man who had no vision with the clay. And he said to him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam," which is translated sent. So he went and washed and came back seeing. Therefore, the neighbors and those who previously had seen that he couldn't see said, "Is not this he who sat and begged?" Some said, "This is he." Others said, "He is like him." He said, "I am he." Therefore they said to him, "How were your eyes opened?" He answered and said, "A man called Jesus made clay and anointed my eyes and said to me, 'Go to the pool of Siloam and wash.' So I went and washed, and I received sight." Then they said to him, "Where is he?" He said, "I do not know." They brought him who formerly could not see to the Pharisees. Now it was a Sabbath when Jesus made the clay and opened his eyes. Then the Pharisees also asked him again how he had received his sight. He said to them, "He put clay on my eyes, and I washed, and I see." Therefore some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, because he does not keep the Sabbath." Others said, "How can a man who is a sinner do such signs?" And there was a division among them. They said to the man again, "What do you say about him because he opened your eyes?" He said, "He is a prophet." But the Jews did not believe concerning him that he had never seen. Those are not the Jews in general, but the authorities. And received his sight until they called the parents of him who had received his sight. And they asked them, saying, "Is this your son? Is this your son who you say could never see? How then does he now see?" His parents answered them and said, "We know that this is our son and that he was never able to see, but by what means he now sees, we do not know. Or who opened his eyes, we do not know. He is of age. Ask him. He will speak for himself." His parents said these things because they feared the Jews. For the Jews had agreed already that if anyone confessed that he was Christ, he would be put out of the synagogue. Therefore his parents said, "He is of age. Ask him." So they again called the man who could never see and said to him, give God the glory. We know that this man is a sinner." He answered and said, "Whether he is a sinner or not, I do not know. One thing I know, that though I couldn't see, Now I can see." Then they said to him again, "What did he do to you? How did he give you vision?" He answered them, "I told you already, and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples?" Then they reviled him and said, "You are his disciple, but we are Moses' disciples. We know that God spoke to Moses. As for this fellow, we do not know where he is from." The man answered and said to them, "Why, this is a marvelous thing that you do not know where he is from, yet he has given me vision. Now we know that God does not hear sinners, but if anyone is a worshiper of God and does his will, he hears him. Since the world began, it has been unheard of that anyone imparting vision like this. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." They answered and said to him, "You were completely born in sins, and you are teaching us." And they cast him out. Jesus heard they had cast him out. And remember, Jesus looks for outcasts. Jesus heard that they had cast him out, and when he found him, he said to him, "Do you believe in the Son of God?" He answered and said, "Who is he, Lord, that I may believe in him?" And Jesus said to him, "You have both seen him, and it is he who is talking with you." Then he said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshiped him. And Jesus said, "For judgment I have come into this world, that those who do not see may see, and that those who see may be sightless." Then some of the Pharisees who were with him heard these words and said to him, "Are we sightless also?" Jesus said to them, "If you could see, you would not be to blame. But now you say, 'We see.' Therefore, your blame remains." I am going to talk about how I feel about and feel for this man's parents, especially his father. But first, I want to show how I identify with the man who couldn't see. As a human, there are things that I so wish that I could have understood earlier. Sometimes I want to blame myself for not seeing the obvious, for ways I burdened Diane and my daughter and 4 sons, for ways I burdened others, all because of my ignorance, my cluelessness, my egotism, my unsupportable certainty. In the case of this man, Jesus's friends want to troubleshoot his misfortunes by finding someone to blame, specifically his parents. But instead of assigning blame to his origins, his roots, his ancestry, Jesus pulls them into the moment. When we come into the moment, we all lose the impulse to troubleshoot other people's misfortune as a practice, as a habit. As a habit, it can be broken. Also, let me ask, have you ever felt like kicking yourself, blaming yourself for your own misfortune, for not being able to see, for not getting it, not getting the obvious? But Jesus does not want this man to take the blame either. He pulls this man and all of us into the moment. Have you ever thought you understood something and you were annoyed when people didn't listen to you, only later to find yourself glad that they ignored you? Jesus pulls us into the moment. I was shaped in part by the culture. I remember coming home from school in the 60s and watching these black and white programs. And some of you will remember this, but there was one titled "Father Knows Best." Okay, well, it took a long time for me to find out that Father does not necessarily know best. But Jesus pulls me into the moment. The moment. Say that aloud wherever you are, the moment. Then Jesus says, "Night is coming, but today is your day." It is a great day for God, which is the same thing as a great day for this man who couldn't see. This is the day. For this man, this is the day, this is the moment, not for troubleshooting and fault finding. This moment's going to change everything. This moment radiates possibility. Possibility. I urge you to take time to sit with your potential. And don't let anyone harsh your mellow. This is your day. Don't let them kill your buzz, even if they are close to you, even if you were expecting their love. Maybe they don't see. How do you respond when the people you assumed would have your back won't even crack a smile with you? They act like they barely know you. What do you do? Well, you celebrate. If you have to celebrate without them, because the important thing now, the moment, is that you see. This man's parents distanced themselves from him. I'll read that part again. They said, "We know that this is our son, that he was never able to see, but by what means he now sees, we do not know, or who opened his eyes, we do not know. He is of age, ask him. He will speak for himself." His parents said these things because they feared the Jews, for the Jews had agreed already that if anyone confessed he was Christ, he would be put out of the synagogue. I believe, like this man's parents, I believe that there are plenty of people who know the truth, but they don't want to talk about it. They are afraid of controlling and exploitative powers and influences and the threat of losing everything. The domination threat may have even penetrated their own families. I believe there are people right now who hope for the common good of humankind. I believe there are people who wanted to wear a mask, who want to be vaccinated, people who believe in health care for all, people who know that their church is a white nationalist cult, people who want to celebrate queerness, people who know that patriarchy kills, and that the hope of the world is largely in the hands of women, and maybe, just maybe, has always been. There are more people than we know who can see that we need to make more noise advocating for accessibility for persons with disabilities. There are people who can see that Israel is a fascist state, people who know the urgency of climate care, people who are outraged over family separation, people who don't want to believe the big lie, people who want to celebrate Juneteenth, people who want to be loyal allies until they see the price tag. I believe there are people who know that God is good, people who know that the real Jesus is the real Jesus. I believe there are people who can see, but they're afraid to look, and they are afraid to acknowledge what they have actually seen and what they know to be true. They have experienced trauma or the threat of trauma, and when you've been traumatized, intimidated, the effect of that can be lasting even when the threat is gone. That's how powerful it is, and people don't want to talk about it. The trauma of encountering dominance can be lasting. Holocaust survivors know things they may prefer not to discuss. Hiroshima and Nagasaki survivors often don't want to talk about it. Families who were interred in the US don't either. Vietnam vets. My dad didn't really get into his Jim Crow experiences with me until I was in my late 30s. The horrors that all of these people experienced are unspeakable. So I can appreciate if this man's father and mother became dissociative. They just didn't want to talk about it. We might want to ask ourselves, what are things What are the things that are happening right now that we are avoiding talking about? Because we need to talk. So there are people who know but don't speak. On the other hand, there are people who claim to know the truth, but they function like people who can't see. These people are not so much afraid. No, they're not afraid, but they benefit from their own denial. They benefit by intimidation, keeping silent those who are fearful. And Jesus has a question for them, and that is, what does it profit you to gain the whole world and lose yourself? Because some things are worse than death, worse than poverty, worse than loneliness. Some things are worse than being ghosted. There are worse things than being let down or abandoned by people you thought loved you. Because you see and you won't speak, that's worse. The man in this story ended up hanging out with Jesus. Now that's hard to beat. What if in your experience of being rejected, being distanced from, being denied, what if that's where you found the way, the truth, the life? May I encourage you today, and even if you're on top of the world, you can always use a little encouragement. John Maxwell wrote that encouragement is oxygen for the soul. So I got your oxygen this morning. Let me do a little CPR. Let me administer the breath of God to you. Breathe, my sisters and my brothers. Breathe, children, breathe. Breathe, you visionaries. Breathe the breath of the divine, the God of possibility. Breathe, you co-creators of the future we all desire. This is our moment. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. The moment. Not for blaming, fault finding, kicking ourselves, but for celebrating. Now I see. I want to close by reading an excerpt from A Course in Miracles that applies to all of this. Today, we go beyond the grievances to look upon the miracle instead. We will reverse the way you see by not allowing sight to stop before it sees. We will not wait before the shield of hate, but lay it down and gently lift our eyes in silence to behold the Son of God. He waits for you behind your grievances, and as you lay them down, he will appear in shining light where each one stood before. For every grievance is a block to sight, and as it lifts you, see the Son of God where he has always been. He stands in the light, but you were in the dark. Each grievance made the darkness deeper, and you could not see. Today, we will attempt to see God's Son. We will not let ourselves be blind to him. We will not look upon our grievances. So is the seeing of the world reversed as we look out toward truth, away from fear. We will select one person you have used as a target for your grievances and lay the grievances aside and look at him. Someone perhaps you fear and even hate. Someone you think you love who angered you. Someone you call a friend, but whom you see as difficult at times or hard to please, demanding, irritating, or untrue to the ideal he should accept as his according to the role you set for him. Each decision that you make is one between a grievance and a miracle. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. That was beautiful. So we're going to be going into small groups. And so I'm thinking about laying down our grievances so that we can see and so that we can say the things that are on our heart. So as we go to small groups, if there's a grievance you'd like to lay down, or if there's a question you'd want to ask, or if there's something that you want to see that you're not seeing, let's talk about it. Let's encourage each other.
Even when the rain falls, even when the flood starts rising, even when the storm comes, I am washed by the water. Even when the rain falls, even when the flood starts rising, even when the storm comes, I am washed by the water. Even when the earth crumbles under my feet, even if the ones I love turn around and crucify me, I won't ever, ever let you down. I won't fall, I won't fall, won't fall as long as you're around me. Even when the rain falls, even when the flood starts rising, even when the storm comes, I am washed by the water. Even when the rain falls, even when the flood starts rising, even when the storm comes, I am washed by the water. Even when the earth crumbles under my feet, even if the ones I love turn around and crucify me, I won't ever, ever let you down. Won't fall, won't fall, I won't fall as long as you're around me. even when the rain falls, even when the flood starts rising, even when the storm comes, I am washed by the water. Even when the rain falls, even when the flood starts rising, even when the storm comes, I am washed by the water. Even if the earth crumbles under my feet, even if the ones I love turn around and crucify me, I won't ever let you down. I won't fall, I won't fall, I won't fall as long as you're around me. Even when the rain falls, even when the flood starts rising, even when the storm comes, I am washed by the water.
Hallelujah.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor and Matthew. We get so much out of you. Pastor, I was wondering, when you said that you wish you could have seen, if you could have seen what you'd see now, what you know now, is there some encouraging story you can tell us that would help us to know what you mean by that?
Oh, no specific story is coming to mind, except I do know that that our kids are parenting us now. Yeah, I just think that just important to be aware, to take steps towards awareness.
Lisa, I saw that you unmuted yourself. What are you thinking?
I was just going to say to Pastor Moore, yeah, passing that baton. There you go. Now your kids are parenting you.
Yeah, Lisa's referring to something I said at the Juneteenth celebration online. And I was asked about the next generations. And I said to the people in the room, because they were, all quite a bit younger than me. And I said, you are the next generations, and I'm trying to pass the baton to you.
Well, I think we're all hoping that the next generation saves us. What did you all talk about in your small group? Anybody have any thoughts? Comments? Oh, Peter?
Yeah, I had a question for Pastor, but I mean, maybe even broader to more of the group if others decide to comment. But I feel like sometimes I listen to messages, and today is no exception. It's like listening to a song on the radio. You kind of start thinking about something you're hearing, and then it takes you in your mind down a rabbit hole and thinking about other things. And I'm not sure I got the whole message, but one thing that came to my mind was I just wondered, Pastor, how have you ever had conversations with your children about mistakes you made or things that you would have wanted to do differently, and how did you approach that?
Well, I've had conversations to some extent with all of them. I've made some apologies. Because I don't know how much they needed it, but I needed to do what I could to set things right. And like Peter asked, somebody else may want to weigh in. I would like to have even more conversations, but this is now, and I think that if I had to guess, I would guess my kids more than me apologizing or talking to them. They're just glad I'm different. That I can get stuck. So floor is open to anybody.
Mhm.
I know there are people here who's got a lot to say.
I feel like that dynamic's like just the conundrum of patriarchy in a way. Like I feel like with my dad, like we're constantly, I would say I'm constantly trying to drag our relationship into the moment.
Hmm.
But we're never in the moment. We're always
Hmm.
like in like the last 50 years of
Hmm.
loving and disappointing and annoying and frustrating each other. And it's not just about our relationship, but about just our entire society. Like how can we just drag it into the moment and not, I don't know. I just that really struck me. Like I just think every time I talk to my father, I'm talking to 50 years of relationship. We're not actually talking to in the moment at all.
Wow.
So
Yeah, I mean, it has to come to now, but I mentioned that TV program I saw when I was a kid. Father Knows Best was the title.
yeah,
That's what society was thinking at that time.
yeah.
And so obviously that I'm gonna, I stood a good chance of being influenced by that. So yes, Caroline, patriarchy has been a huge problem and is a huge problem.
I know. let's get rid of it.
Okay. Wait, maybe Wednesday or Thursday or
Yeah.
Friday?
The
We'll
patriarchy
schedule
smashing.
we'll schedule the smashing of the patriarchy.
Okay. I'm free. But anyway, I love that idea of trying to be in the moment. I'm gonna hold on to that and see if I can make that happen in the future.
I think when I've apologized to my children, they've always been, "Oh, Mom, that was not even," And so sometimes they're just, I don't know if they don't want to talk about it, or if the things that we feel, they don't necessarily feel, maybe, and maybe there's other
Yeah.
things that they do feel, they don't say.
Wait, can I jump in response to that quickly?
Yeah.
I don't want to make it all about me, but after my mother died, I read her diaries, which I don't know if that's and I always thought that I was so mean to my mom all the time and I was such a bad daughter. And I read her diaries and it's all about how amazing I was.
Oh
And
my
I'm
gosh.
like what you're saying, like it's so different. Like
Yeah.
but anyway, not to make it all about me today.
No, Caroline, it's fine.
I had that experience you just referenced, Tanya. Talking to one of my sons, I apologized, like, for something, and then like maybe 3 years later, I apologized for the same thing, and he said, "Oh, come on, Dad." I got a son in the room right now. I don't know if he wants to weigh in. Matt, just
I
tell
heard
us.
that.
Tell us your thoughts. You were the one that had to suffer all of that. So, well, one of the ones.
I'm not gonna. But if you can hear me,
Can you hear Matt?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he needs to talk for us to know, actually, I guess.
welcome to the future. Yeah, I'm. It is a positive look into the future when humans can accept change, and we'll talk, and my main focus on really human nature and humans in general is when humans can inhibit understanding and perspective, and I will say that in pretty much any conversation anyone has with me, which is very few. And me and my dad will have conversations, and it's really the focus of any message that I try to portray, and to see humans that actually will will show that they can have fine perspective, because humans, I feel, lost a lot of it, just in the past 16 months. And you watched everyone lose it more and more, and it was very sad to see. But when you see it happen and it's right there in front of you, you say, okay, you can like point out, people, this person is willing to have perspective and to understand multiple sides of everyone's story. It's a beautiful thing, and my dad does that, and it's great. That's all.
Yeah. So I guess, Matt, you're saying that you can accept that Father, you knew that a long time ago, but Father doesn't know best.
Right? Father doesn't know best, but nobody knows. There's an unlimited amount of knowledge to be gained from the cosmos and the universe. And so for someone to act like they know that everything is hindering to human growth.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
It's like Father doesn't know best, but he's willing to learn.
Yeah, that's it right there. Father is willing to learn. Now that would be a great show.
I feel like maybe this harkens a little bit back to that conversation we had a couple of weeks ago about perfection and just our desire to be perfect, not to those around us, but to our children too. And maybe there is, by everyone around us, including our children, that they look at us on balance at some level. I mean, I don't think what Matthew just said, that I think what I heard Matthew saying was who Pastor is now, and what amazing things he does now is what he sees. And that really is an acceptance of not perfection, but that kind of on balance, maybe we're getting better as time goes on too.
Well, and things certainly don't bother us like they used to. That's for sure. I think that's one of the best things about getting older is I just don't, like the things before would bother me, and my relationships, and it just doesn't matter because perspective is getting broader, I guess, as we get older. Shella, what are you thinking?
I was just listening to Matt and thinking about my daughter, who it's almost like she can just be who she is now. She feels so much freedom in talking with me now, because even though I think we always talked, but I didn't share everything. And later I started telling her little things that I did and all that. And I think now she just appreciates that I'm not so confining in things. I don't make her do certain things, or you shouldn't do this, or this is wrong and that's wrong, but that I'm willing to watch her grow and learn. And a lot of her friends don't have relationship with God. And so I think she's figuring out how to do that, because her relationship with God is starting to come back because of the way I'm acting. She appreciates it. She's like, I like this, so I don't know. Anyway, I think it's good. And I'm glad I've shared, I've been more open with her. So.
Well, and I think when we're young parents or younger parents, we feel so much pressure, that everything we do and say, and if kids turn out a certain way, and that, I think that comes with it.
Yeah, I think we don't want to, we don't want to fail our kids, but our understanding of failure is often infused by culture, by society. So we think we're being the best parents ever, and we're just doing what other people, told us to do or modeled for us. Yeah.
That whole idea of if anything worth trying is worth failing at.
But I don't think the world allows us to fail. That's the situation.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Emily, I feel like you have something on your mind. I mean, your eyes are moving upward. There's something
It's
going on
just-
there.
It's really fun to hear parents talk about being parents. Because like I don't ever hear that. I'm like 22. Like I mean, I have a couple friends who are becoming super new parents to newborns, but yeah, this is not like a conversation that I that I hear that often. So it's just interesting. I feel like I'm a little spy right now.
Into the inner mind. Do you think we're crazy?
No, it's just, I mean, I don't know. I feel like as somebody, I don't know, the older you get, the more you emerge from adolescence, the more you just realize how hard parenting is. Like, you're like, wow, that seems really difficult. I'm glad I wasn't my own parent, you know?
Ernie, what's on your mind?
I do think that, like Pastor David said about culture and what's going on in society, kind of dictates my feeling in my head was always safety and how fragile we think life, or how fragile we know life can be. But my mom used to always say there are 10 ways to get to 10th Avenue. So it doesn't have to be my way, but you have to wait till they get a certain age before you can exercise that 10 ways to get to 10th Avenue, but you do have to lie in the bed that you make. And so I let that be the same sort of proverb that I would tell my daughter, that you could make some choices, and some of them were so scary for me. Yet I had to let go and let her live her life. And then she would come back later and say, wow, I didn't know how crazy I was. Because she could look at it being more scary much later, especially after having a child. So, and I do think both for me, mothers and fathers had the same role. So listening to one was like listening to the other, even though the messages were different. I was an easy enough child. I didn't do a whole lot of things outside those rules, and they didn't harm me. But I think the biggest one was when I left God after my son was born. And it took me a long time to just accept the incredible things he put in my life, even though that was the most difficult also. So.
Well, Ernie, I'm glad you pointed out fear, because, you know, everything we do, we can do it with faith, or we can do it with fear. And for many of us, I know as parents, we just wanted to protect our kids. You know, I remember I used to, I would exaggerate this. My daughter, when she was a little girl, and when we were getting ready to cross the street, I would say, you know, look both ways. And then, you know, this is like when she's 7 years old or something like that. And then, you know, it would be safe to cross. And I'd see a car like, you know, a third of a mile away. And I would say, oh, here comes a car, you know. That was playful, but seriously, I think fear, you know, was a part of too many decisions.
Hasmi, did you have a comment?
I was also tripping out on listening to parents talk about their kids, and I'm older than Emily, but not a parent. And I was put in the chat, I keep looking at Papa and saying, is that true, Papa? Is that true? About all kinds of the stuff that you guys were saying, or that y'all were saying. But I was also in my own way agreeing with what Carolyn said earlier about things being so different, the perspective of an adult child. I know that I've shared with my parents that so much of the work that I've done on myself ultimately ended up allowing for me to benefit from the most nourishing and fruitful relationships, which is with them, my mom and dad, and my husband.
Mhm.
And I was such a, I mean, the same person, obviously, but in such a different place, and so much more willing to break instead of rebuild. So much, I guess I'm just as capable of recognizing broken, but the intentions that I have, it's just so different.
Mhm.
And I trip out because I don't have to, I think of so many ways that you don't have to be a parent to recognize how I think it's the time, the hindsight and time. You don't have to be a parent to recognize how at 13 or 15 or 17 you're still a baby. And it could be very much the beginning of not being that. And for too many people, that is broken and shattered and not existent. The ability to be that baby. Society doesn't allow for some people to have that from too early of an age. And there's still a lot of work to be done with that regard. I know that what Ernie was just saying about both parents having a similar role, but saying different things, but having that care and love, I know I most definitely always felt that. And I didn't always have, I've always, like Shala said, I've always talked with my mom, but we don't always just talk about things. And there's so much that I think people can carry